Namaste, beautiful yogis. Welcome to an intermediate to advanced Vinyasa Yoga session for Mixed Martial Arts Part 2. In Part 1, we'll cover the basic positions, and in Part 3, we'll focus on holding and deepening the stretches. In this class, we're going to focus on flexibility, joint mobility, and organic movement. Let's begin at the front end of our mats. Feet pointing directly forward. Step your feet hip width apart and begin to deepen your breath. You can rock back and forth, feeling your feet from the toes to the heel and back. Finding your balance, observing your balance, and you can rock side to side, finding the central axis of your body, the imaginary central axis of your body. Rocking up until you find the place where it takes no effort to stand in. And let's bring the hands over the third eye. Close your eyes. Take a big breath in. And reach with your hands over your head. Reaching through the fingertips, letting the feet sink into the mat. Look up. Exhale, keep your back flat. Lower down, forward bend. And let's wrap the wrists around the elbows and let your upper body hang over your thighs. Let's clasp the fingers and bring your hands on your neck and the back of your head, gently gliding the hands over the skin, allowing the neck to stretch. You can rock your upper body side to side, left and right, finding areas of stiffness. Exhaling through there. Release your hands down on the floor, on your shin bones. Straight back, come all the way up to standing. Reach over your head and let's clasp the hands one more time. Bring them on your neck and back of your head. Keep your elbows back and lift your chest up. Here we're not trying to reach back with the head. We're trying to lift the chest up towards the ceiling. Creating expansion. One more time. Lift through your heart up and keep your elbows back in one plane with your ears. Feel the openness. Lengthen the back of your neck here. Extend your tailbone down, tucking the tailbone down. And reach with your hands over your head. Exhale, dive to the floor. Forward bend. Inhale, look in front of you. And we're going to step back in plank. Keep your chest open, shoulders over your wrists. Press the heels back away from you. Pull the belly in, reinforcing the connection with your core. Powerhouse. Inner thighs squeezing towards the midline. They're squeezing towards each other. Take the right leg up, lower down, chaturanga, halfway down. Inhale, upward facing dog. Roll the shoulders back and down. Keep your knees off the floor. Your hands and the top of your feet are the only connection with the floor. Back to chaturanga. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg up. One-legged downward facing dog. Roll the right hip on top of the left hip. Bend your right knee and drop the right heel behind you. Explore the openness and flexibility of your hip here. Keep lifting through your knee. Keep pressing your hands down. And coming out of this, square your hips. Press the right heel away from you. And still lengthening through the heel. Bring your right leg across to your left, stretching the IT band and the hip. Feel that you're lengthening your hamstrings and calves through that motion of pressing the heel away from you. And let's open the right leg all the way to the right, using the hip muscle, the hip strength. Chaturanga with your right heel out. And back to one-legged plank, chaturanga, upward facing dog. Second chaturanga, exhale, downward facing dog. Every time you move through chaturanga, come back to the connection with your core. Take the left leg up, lower down, chaturanga. Drop the foot down, upward facing dog. Open the chest, press the space between the collarbones open. Back to chaturanga, exhale and downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg comes up, roll the left hip on top of the right. Keep the right heel down, bending the left knee, drop the left heel behind you. Lifting through your knee here, lift as high as you can. Feel your hip warming up, opening. We're gonna work quite a bit on hip flexibility, so we're starting the warm-up now. Breathe into your hips. And let's square the hips, straightening the left leg, moving the left heel across from the body, keeping the hips square. You'll feel this in your IT band. Spread the fingers wide open, press your hands, the base of your fingers into your mat. Keep the shoulders away from your ears. Keep pressing the heel over to your right. And now let's open the left heel all the way to the left, keeping the leg parallel to the floor. Use your hip strength. Come into plank with your leg out and forward and back into downward dog. Plank, chaturanga. You can drop your foot down, upward facing dog. Widen your back, tuck the tailbone under, lengthen the back of your neck. And press back into downward facing dog. You can keep the top of your toes on the floor to stretch your feet. If both feet at the same time is too much, you can do one foot at a time. And let's come out of this downward facing dog. You can shift your hips side to side, lower down onto your knees, all fours. Take your right leg up, bending at the knee, flexing at the foot, and reach with your left hand back to grab your ankle. Here we're pressing the leg away from the shoulder so that we're stretching the front of the shoulder. You're using your leg to press away from you. Change sides. Really flex your foot, and holding your shin bone, you're gonna feel that stretch into your shoulder. Breathe. Release. Knees on the floor. And let's come into plank. Press the heels away from you. Breathe. And jump your feet by your hands at the front of the mat. Bring your hands in prayer in garland pose or yogic squat. Hands in prayer, elbows are opening the knees out. That way we're opening the hips, warming up the hips. Sophie, go away. Anytime you have tension in your back, you can use this pose during your day to release the lower back. And if you end up sitting for a while, you can always take this pose to open the hips. Let's straighten the legs and bring the hands underneath the feet, using the feet as weight to press down onto the hands and release the hands and the wrists. Grab the big toes with your index, middle finger and thumb and roll all the way back to plow and roll forward. and roll back, massaging the spine, warming up the spine, and roll forward. A few more of those. Continue rolling. Keep the connection with your belly. As you come up, you can come into a ab balance Navasana. And this time we're going to stay in plow and walk the feet over to the left, quickly over to the right. Back to center. Hands on the mat, palms down, come up to standing jump, roll back. Let's do 10 of those. Rolling forward, squat, jump, rolling back, plow. 1. Rolling forward, squat, jump, rolling back. 2. Rolling forward, jumping, and back. 3. Jumping. 4. Rolling back. Jumping. 5. Rolling back. 6. 7. 8. 9. And last one. 10. And let's come up into standing. This was just to warm up the spine, massage the spine. Let's bring some rotational movements, swinging the hands, the arms side to side, coming onto the tippy toes, side to side. Let your hands guide you here. You're gonna feel some correction in your spine here. Just let your arms be heavy. And coming back to center, take chair pose. Sit back, press your hips back. Exhale, hands on the floor, forward bend. Plank, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Chaturanga. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg up, step the right foot between your hands. Drop the back heel down, come up, warrior one. Hips facing forward. Here we're beginning to warm up the hips and stretch the quadriceps, hip flexors here, so that we can square the hips forward. Pressing that left hip forward, and let's face the side of the mat. Bend your right knee and squat down. Flex your left foot, press the toes back in towards you. Take lunge pose facing forward. Come up, reach over your head with your hands. Press the back heel away from you. Let's bring the hands on the inside of the right foot and spin on the outer edges of your feet here, stretching the right hip essentially. And let's face forward, come back up to lunge. Exhale, hands on the floor, spin on the outer edges of your feet here one more time, and this time we're gonna stack the feet on top of each other, side plank. Make sure your left shoulder is over your left wrist. Here we're gonna do 10 toe touches in front of us. Let's get started. 1, 2, 3. Keep your hips lifted. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And come into one-handed plank. Bring your hand underneath you, palm of the hand facing up, and lower yourself down onto your belly, using the weight of your body to stretch the back of your shoulder. Great. Slowly coming out of this, cobra pose, hands on the floor, tuck the tailbone under. Really try to bring the back bend into the upper back. Tuck your toes under, press yourself up into plank and downward facing dog. Inhale the left leg up, step the left foot between the hands. Drop the back heel down on the floor, come up warrior one, hips facing forward, pressing the right hip forward here. You want to square your hips with the wall in front of you or work in that direction. Pressing into the outer edge of the right foot. Extending the tailbone down, breathe, stretching here. The hip flexor on the right side. Nice deep inhalations followed by complete exhalations, making sure your left knee is pointing directly forward, aligning with your toes here. Let's exhale the hands on the floor on the inside of the left foot. Straighten your right leg, flex your toes back in towards you. Squatting deep on the left side. Great. Coming back to low lunge. Reach over your head, high lunge. Exhale, hands on the floor and roll onto the outer edges of your feet here. And come back up, high lunge. Exhale, hands on the floor and roll onto the outer edges of your feet one more time. Looking back. Great. Stack the feet on top of each other, side plank, right hand on the floor, right shoulder over, and we're gonna touch the toes in front of us 10 times. 1, 2, hips lifted. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And let's reach over the head, plank, one hand only on the floor. Let's bring the knees on the floor and slowly lower down onto your belly. Left hand, palm of the hand facing up, and breathe in the back of the shoulder, triceps, wherever you feel the stretch. Press yourself up with your right hand, cobra pose, elbows tucked into the rib cage, roll the shoulders back and down. Exhale, lower down. Press yourself up into plank using your core, and we're gonna continue with interval of crossovers. Let's get started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20. And chaturanga, upward facing dog, rocking the hips side to side, looking back. Keep the belly in, extending the tailbone down the entire time. And let's come back to up dog. And from there directly jump into squat. Wide-legged squat. Sink deep into the squat, hands on the floor, and jump back into plank. Chaturanga, upward facing dog. Back to chaturanga, exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, the right leg comes up. Step the right foot between your hands and come up. Warrior 1. Vira 1. Relax your shoulders. Open into Vira 2. Warrior 2. Make sure the right knee is pointing directly forward, aligning with the toes on the right side. Let's lower the right hand on the floor or the right elbow over the right knee in side angle. Reach up and over your head with your left arm and spin open the left rib cage up. Spin open the left hip. Let's bring the hands on the floor, side stretch, side lunge stretch. Flex the foot, the left foot. Pull the toes back in towards you. Either stay here or go to the next level by clasping your hands behind you, wrapping your right arm around your right knee. Relax your shoulders, the front of your shoulders. Great. From here, we're gonna come halfway up and bring the right shoulder underneath the right knee and see if you can stand on your right hand here and let your leg kind of hook or your knee hook onto your shoulder. Great. Walking the hands to the back of the mat, come up, warrior one, facing the back of your room. Bending the left knee here, leading with the left knee. And let's open into warrior two. Here we're externally rotating the right hip, pressing into the outer edge of the right foot. Reach in front of you and either bring the left elbow over the left knee or left hand on the inside of the left foot for side angle. Opening that right hip up. Reach up and over your head with your right hand. Let's bring both hands on the inside of the left foot. Straighten the right leg, flex the foot. You can use your elbow to open that left knee. Further back, you can clasp behind your back, softening the front of the shoulder here. Release, hands on the floor. See if you can bring your left shoulder underneath your left knee. This is preparing us for a deeper hamstring and hip opening pose. So just see where you're at with this level of this pose. Great. Side to side bends. Bending one knee at a time and pressing the knee and the hips back. Let's walk to the front of the mat. Step back into one-legged downward facing dog. Lifting the right leg. And let's bring the right knee into the right elbow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Try to bring your knee high into your armpit almost if you can. And here either hold or you can transition into an arm balance, lifting your back leg off the floor and keeping your right leg on your right tricep. And jump back into chaturanga, plank, downward facing dog. Left leg comes up. Big breath in. Bring your knee high onto your triceps 5 times. 1. Drive the knee as high as you can. Use your core. 2. Really contracting the core and driving the knee high. 3, 4, 5. And you can go into an arm balance or just stay here. Feel free to stay in the previous pose, holding your knee as high as you can up on your triceps, or from an arm balance you can jump back into chaturanga and press all the way back into downward facing dog. Spread your fingers wide open, keep your shoulders away from your ears, keep your back wide, and keep working to soften the heels down. Let's come into plank and upward facing dog and jump into squat. Here you can drop the heels towards the floor, on the floor if you can, and bring your hands in prayer. Hands on the floor, crow pose. Knees are high onto the triceps, lifting the feet off the floor, squeezing the heels towards each other. Jumping back into chaturanga and upward facing dog. And back into chaturanga. Exhale and downward facing dog. Inhale, the right leg comes up. Roll the right hip on top of the left hip, keeping the knee as high as you can, and either stay here or flip over into a 3-pointed back bend. 3-point back bend, keeping the right leg bent and the left leg straight. You can bring both hands behind you on the floor and come into a reverse plank. Lifting your hips as high as you can here, press your heels. Come into the 3-point back bend, and you can step onto your right leg and bring your left leg in front of you, touch your toes 3 times. That is 2 and 3, and come into plank. Let's bring the right leg across from the body and slowly lower down onto your belly. You can stay here or you can adjust by grabbing your foot with your left hand and lifting it a bit higher. And just exhale here. You can pause the video and stay for a lot longer here, allowing for your hip IT bend to release, soften, stretch, open. To come out of this, you're gonna press up, lifting the hips off the floor, and let's go into pigeon. Bending the right knee. Here, my shin bone is almost parallel with the front end edge of my mat. You can keep your heel back towards you, depending on your flexibility level, making sure your hips are equal distance from the floor. The back is elongated, lifting the rib cage away from the hips. Flexing the foot. Hold it a bit longer, pausing the video, or come out of it, drawing a few circles with the right knee. And let's lift the left leg up, step behind you with the left foot. This pose is called Wow Thing, or 3-point back bend, as I like to call it. Lifting the hips as high as you can, key in this pose. And you can bring both hands behind you for a reverse plank, lifting the hips as high as you possibly can. Squeezing the inner thighs towards the midline, softening the front of the shoulders. This is quite a bit of a stretch for the shoulders. And come back into Wild Thing, right leg straight. And flip back into downward facing dog. You can bring your left leg across from your body. Flex your left foot here and hold. There is a lot of ways to deepen this pose, but it's good to hold this level of the pose for a while. You're gonna feel this in your IT band and in your hip. You can deepen it by bringing the leg a little higher up. And from here, we're just gonna go into pigeon, one-legged king's pigeon pose. Flex your left foot, keep your hips level with the floor. The tailbone is aligning with your spine. Try not to tilt your hips here. Usually what I see most common as a mistake is the left hip is further down towards the floor and the right hip lifts off the ground. Try to keep your hips level with the floor by adjusting how far your left heel is away from you. You might have to keep your left heel all the way back towards your hip. Try to keep your exhalation moving out through the hip, exhaling through the hip, consciously softening the tissue and muscles. And to come out of it, slowly lift back into a one-legged downward facing dog, staying off of that left leg, drawing circles. Lower the knees on the floor, come down onto your belly, bend your knees, reach back, and see if you can grab your ankles. Bow pose, and we're gonna flip or go over to one side, opening that shoulder, back to center, over to the other side. Breathe. Softening the front of the shoulder. Back to center. Lift your legs as high as you can, flex your feet. And slowly lower your chest down on the floor, releasing the legs down on the floor. Spread your arms out to the sides, and we're gonna touch diagonally the floor by the hand with each foot. So bring your right leg over to your left leg over to the right, towards the right hand, scorpion pose. Do this a few times, 3-4 times on each side. You may even hear your back adjusting here. Once you're done, bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Cobra. Lifting all the way to downward facing dog. Pressing into the knuckles of each finger. And let's bend the knees and jump to the front of the mat, chair pose. Sit back into your chair. And let's bend forward. Legs a little wider than hip width apart. Funny looking pose. That's when you know you're a real yogi. If you start bringing your head towards your butt, you've taken yoga seriously. And transitioning into an arm balance. From the arm balance, I'm bringing my legs back into crow pose. And from here, I'm going to bring my head on the floor and go into a headstand or tripod headstand. You can set any of the previous levels of this particular sequence. You can work on the funny stretch, or you can stay in crow's pose. And from tripod headstand, upward facing dog, jumping forward into squat or deep squat, and we're gonna grab the big toes with the index, middle finger, and thumb, and go all the way back into plow. Roll back. Softening the back of the throat here, you can let go of your toes and bring your hands on the mat. You can bring your arms on the mat, clasping your fingers here, holding plow. Breathe into your entire spine, back. You can either hold plow here, or you can bend one knee by the ear and straighten the other leg out, and then switch sides. Try to see what your body needs here and how you can go a little deeper, and just experiment with plow and the variations of plow. Straightening one leg, bending one knee, opening one leg. You can bring both knees together over to your left ear, over to the right side, bringing a little different bend into the spine. And to come out of a plow, either roll back onto your legs or do a backward somersault if you're familiar with it, and come into a forearm plank. Here we're gonna go for 10 plank or forearm plank, chin to fingertips, taps. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, keeping the belly in, 8, 9, 10. And let's bring the legs in front of us, coming into a seated. And let's bring the left knee, left leg on the floor. Bring the right ankle on the outside of the left knee. Lift your left arm up, left elbow on the outside of the right knee. You can just stay here, or you can see if you can clasp behind. And hold here, keep your shoulders down and your chest open, the spine elongated. This is a great hip opener. Work with your breath. Inhale, open the chest, lengthen the spine. Exhale, soften the belly and go a little deeper in this twist. Either stay here holding this pose, or you can go into an arm balance if you're familiar with it or you're willing to try, which is another way to further open the hips. Coming down from the arm balance, you're gonna walk around your feet, staying on the toes the whole time, and you'll end up on the other side. Right knee on the floor, left knee up, left ankle on the outside of the right knee. Inhale, right arm up. Bring the right elbow on the outside of the left knee and either stay here, or you can clasp behind if your shoulders are open. This pose is great for opening the hips, the shoulders, improving spinal rotation, deepening the breath. Either hold this pose at this level, or you can bring your hands in chaturanga alignment on the floor, keeping the left knee over the right triceps. Try to have your knee as high on the triceps as possible, lifting into an arm balance and lower down. Now let's stack the knees on top of each other, walking the heels as close to the hips as possible, and either stay here or you can bend forward. Optional is to bring the right elbow over the left and wrap the hands around each other, wrapping the forearms. And we can bring the right triceps by the right ear, left triceps by the rib cage. See if you can clasp behind. If you can't, you can hold a towel or just touch your t-shirt. Last hip opener for this sequence is stacking the shin bones on top of each other in double pigeon. Here, if your hips are open, you can bend forward. Flex your feet and keep them flexed the entire time. If your top knee is somewhere in the air, not exactly over the ankle, don't worry about it. Just make sure that your shin bones are in the same plane over each other and that you are keeping your feet flexing. Let's come out of this and bring the right knee over the left knee, stacking the knees on top of each other here and keeping the heels towards the hips. Either sit or bend forward here. Optional is to wrap the right elbow underneath the left elbow, wrapping the forearms around each other. And here we're going to bring the right elbow by the right ear, left elbow by the rib cage, either using a towel, a strap, or just holding your t-shirt or clasping your fingers if you can. And coming out of this time we're gonna bring the right leg on top, so right ankle over the left knee, and either sit upright or you can bend forward into forward bend. Breathe into your hips. Exhaling slowly, allowing your body to be guided by your breath, keeping nice soft exhalations. Coming out of this, grab your big toes and bring your big toes in towards your ears. It doesn't matter how close you bring your toes in towards the ears, just keep moving here so that we're bringing flexibility and movement in the hips. Next, we're gonna bring the left knee behind the left shoulder and either just stay here or you can bring your right hand over your left foot and begin to straighten the leg halfway, all the way, depending on your flexibility. Looking over to your right if possible. Press the extended right leg on the floor. Either stay here or you can go ahead with the next arm balance, wrapping the right foot over the left, lifting off the floor and coming back down on the floor over to the opposite side, right knee behind the right shoulder, grabbing the foot with the opposite hand and straightening the leg halfway or all the way. Pausing here. Great hip opener, hamstring stretch, shoulder stretch in a way, and we can wrap the feet around each other and lift the hips off the floor. Coming back down on the floor, bring the soles of your feet together and hold here. Butterfly pose. You can either hold your hands behind you, pressing the knees down towards the floor, or you can even press down your legs, helping with your hands. And coming out of this, we're gonna bring the feet together and lower down onto your forearms. Make sure your knees here are on a soft surface. Holding for a few breaths. Keeping the feet together, outer and inner edges of the feet together. And we're gonna transition into frog pose. Here we're gonna bring the calves parallel to each other, flex the feet, again soft surface under your knees, and hold here. Make sure your calves are parallel to each other. This is a great way to finish the adductor stretching. We did a few adductor stretches. And to come out of this, bring your knees halfway in, child's pose. You don't have to bring the knees together yet. Hold them apart for a while. Great. Coming up, and let's lower down onto our backs. Bring your knees by your rib cage, holding the outer edges of the feet here. Happy baby. You can rock side to side, massaging the spine. Another way to release the lower back and open the hips. And let's bring the feet hip width apart. On the floor, bridge pose, lifting the hips as high as you can. Either stay in bridge or you can bring your hands by your ears and lift up into wheel pose. Make sure your knees are pointing directly forward, feet pointing directly forward, hip width. And let's lower down. Supine twist, right knee comes across to the left. Keep both of your shoulders on the floor. Exhale, soften your belly, look over to your right. If your knee is not on the floor, that is not a big deal, just make sure your shoulders is on the floor. And switch sides. Left knee over to the left shoulder on the floor, look over to your left, hold. Softening through your exhalations here. And coming out of this, let's bring the soles of the feet together. Reclining butterfly pose. Open the palms of your hands up. Allow your shoulders to drop down on the floor. Soften your belly. Let your knees drop to the sides. Keeping the back of the head wide. The neck is long. Relax your jaw. Keep your tongue off the palate. And stay here for a few moments, making sure to spend this time contemplating your breath and the present moment, allowing yourself to be completely present and completely aware of your breath, of the sound of your heart beating. Thanks for joining me today for this vinyasa. Let's give thanks to our hearts for their generosity, compassion, and love. Namaste.